Welcome to our channel, friends. Subscribe and support us with likes and comments. Thank you. Enjoy watching. The Womanizer man did not seek to find a strong family, but he realized in his old age. Love story. Maxwell Jacob was very fond of women. He loved beautifully, passionately, selflessly, but not for long. People like him are called womanizer. Maxwell Jacob was always irritated by such a rude word. He wrinkled his nose in annoyance and looked reproachfully at the speaker. Usually, his parents told him about it directly in person, who were already desperate to wait for the time when their only son would take up his mind and make them happy with their grandchildren. Maxwell Jacob answered with a smile, "Sorry, you are wrong. What kind of womanizer am I? Womanizer is low and vulgar. The womanizer goal is to drag a woman into bed. If you want to characterize my personality in terms of relationships with women, call me Lovelace. That is the lace of love, and I weave this lace of love thinly and beautifully." Mother said ironically, "Something you can't weave this lace in any way. Your father and I will die without waiting for the results of your lace weaves." Maxwell Jacob sighed heavily. "Oh, you don't understand anything." And he was in a hurry to close the door to the apartment, so as not to hear his parents begin to swear because of him. Maxwell Jacob adored women, tall and short, slim and plump, beautiful and ordinary looking. To be more precise, Maxwell Jacob was always sure that there are no ugly women in nature. Every woman has her own certain charm, her own zest, and not everyone can see it. And he can. Maxwell Jacob was truly a virtuoso at seducing women. He never promised to marry anyone. Honestly speaking about this immediately to his next passion, "I love women too much to marry anyone." But for some reason, every woman thought that she would be the exception and used all her charms. The sudden flash of interest in a woman also suddenly died out in Maxwell's soul. Usually, his next passion immediately felt it and she was in a hurry to break off relations. And they parted easily and without offense, keeping in mind all the charm of weaving the lace of love. Maxwell Jacob is 52 years old. His parents died without waiting for a daughter-in-law and grandchildren. Light gray hair silvered his thick dark hair, and wrinkles appeared on his face. But this didn't spoil the man at all. On the contrary, all these age-related changes combined with the toned figure he ran in the morning, pulled himself up the horizontal bar and went to the pool, gave Maxwell Jacob a calm confidence and even greater attractiveness in the eyes of woman whom he still adored, but not so passionately like when he was young. Now, his lace of love was mostly woven from words and beautiful courtship in the light. The years took their toll. But Maxwell Jacob was happy and didn't regret anything, and most importantly, he didn't regret anyone except for his parents. That Saturday evening, Maxwell Jacob stopped by his favorite cafe to eat two cutlets with the most delicious hot sauce, which was served only here, and also to drink a couple of cups of aromatic coffee, which was prepared on hot sands and Turks. The man looked at the audience with interest while waiting for the order. He loved to watch strangers and make up little stories about their lives. The young woman is sitting with a girl of about 5 years old. They are obviously waiting for someone, as the woman often glances at her watch and the girl fidgets impatiently in her chair. A group of noisy young people are drinking cocktails and discussing something violently, laughing out loud. A married couple is sitting at a table in the corner. The woman is about 40, and judging by the treats, they are celebrating something, but judging by their faces, the holiday didn't work out. His order was brought, and Maxwell Jacob looked up from his observations and began to eat the cutlets. He was already finishing his coffee until drunken guys entered the hall. While one of them was ordering something at the counter, the second guy approached the couple and began to loudly tell dirty jokes to the woman. Her companion tried to intercede for the woman, but he quickly retreated, receiving a blow to the stomach. A second guy approached, forcibly seating a woman who had jumped up on a chair. Maxwell Jacob didn't hesitate for a second when he saw the frightened face of a woman left without protection. Either the guys drank a fair amount of alcohol, or Maxwell Jacob was in much better shape, despite his age. But the next moment, one of the young guys was writhing on the floor, curling up, and the second hurriedly ran away. The guards arrived. Maxwell Jacob was about to leave the empty cafe when he noticed that the same woman was sitting alone at the table and crying, covering her face with her hands. Maxwell Jacob asked politely if she needed help. The woman shook her head and said that he had already helped, unlike some, by weaving her hand in the direction of empty chair, after which she began to cry harder. The thought automatically flashed through the head of inexperienced Lovelace. Someone should help the woman come to her senses, and he gestured for the waiter. When coffee and cakes were brought to them, Maxwell Jacob said, giving the female stranger a charming smile. Unfortunately, there are a lot of scum nowadays, but this is no reason to refuse excellent coffee, which can only be found here. She smiled back, and then they drank coffee and talked. As it turned out, her runaway boyfriend was not really her husband, and that their relationship had long reached an impasse, and it was time for them to leave. Natalie smiled bitterly. I didn't think that everything would turn out so ugly. It was completely dark outside. Natalie got up from the table. I have to go. Maxwell Jacob paid for the order, after which he offered without any ulterior motive. Let me walk you home since it's already dark outside. She went to the crossing, pointing to it. Don't, I live in that house across the streets. For the first time in his life, Maxwell Jacob said nothing, because the whole arsenal of familiar words suddenly seemed banal and stupid to him. He stood and watched Natalie leave, and she suddenly stopped, turned around, and resolutely approached him. Maxwell, thank you for everything. She kissed him quickly on the cheek. Something happened in Maxwell's soul after this chance meeting. What exactly? He himself couldn't answer this question. Only suddenly, for some reason, he completely lost his desire to weave the laces of love. Natalie was in his mind's eye. How could he let her go without even asking for her address, or taking her phone number? It didn't look like an old Lovelace at all. It's been a couple of months. During this time, Maxwell Jacob visited his favorite cafe more often than usual, hoping in the depths of his soul that Natalie would come there somehow. In the evenings after work, he often walked along her house, but didn't meet the only woman who for some reason didn't get out of his head. That day, Maxwell Jacob overslept work and stood at the bus stop, looking nervously at his watch, and suddenly he saw Natalie approaching him. He rushed her as if to an old acquaintance, smiling stupidly, and he talked all sorts of nonsense and jokes. The bus came up. He felt so good sitting next to this woman. Talk and more talk about nothing. Maxwell Jacob came to his senses when Natalie began to get ready to leave a bus. He grabbed her hand and began to speak quickly, who all this time he had been waiting for their meeting, went to a cafe and walked in the evenings near her house. Natalie smiled warmly and was silent. The doors of the bus opened. She got out, the bus started moving, and Maxwell Jacob almost slapped his forehead with annoyance for his stupid behavior, because he didn't have time to ask her for a phone number. And 2 weeks later, Maxwell Jacob was sitting in a cafe and reluctantly eating signature cutlets, and suddenly Natalie quietly sat down on a nearby chair. For a moment, he suffocated and then said, Natalie, I will not let you go again. Marry me. She smiled. Marry you. Can you buy me coffee first? It's been 8 years. Maxwell and Natalie watched their son stand on the solemn line, because today he went to first grade. Natalie whispered in a trembling voice into her husband's absolutely great temple. So our boy has grown up. Maxwell squeezed her hand tighter. For some reason, right now he remembered his parents, who never waited for their grandchildren through his faults. Maxwell mentally told them, sorry, I'm not a womanizer. It's just that my love zigzagged in the labyrinths of life for a very long time, until it finally found me. That's all, friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Goodbye.